Hello, 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 everybody from Homemade. Very exciting recipe we have. We have our wonderful partner, Dole Food Company, tonight. We have Dole's fabulous registered dietitian, Melanie, on the call with us, so lots of great nutritional information. We had a little segment before the show, and I learned so much already. I just love this job so much. Learn something every day. So lots more to share with Melanie. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's nice to see you familiar faces. If you're new to Homemade, we love to see you on Zoom. We love to have you participate. We love to have you ask questions, comments, give input in the chat. We have our beautiful chef Lisa moderating tonight. Hi Lisa, how are you?
Chef Diane and I were reunited, and then we have an amazing registered dietitian to teach us so much about this delicious recipe.
So we'll get started here in just a couple of minutes. Again, love to see your faces. Chef Lisa's putting the website in the chat, so make sure and grab that, bookmark it. Really good recipes. At Dole Pics is the social media, so put all that good information in there and take a look at that site now or later on, and wonderful, wonderful recipes and good information there for you. So really fun recipe tonight, this pineapple banana power bread. So pineapple and banana, both stars of the show here. And I don't know about you, but at my house, it happens, my husband actually eats a banana every single day, but for a week, he'll buy like 14 bananas. And I'm like, let's say you eat one every day and I eat half a banana a day or something. If you do the math, it's like we have extra bananas in our house, but nothing goes to waste. Nothing goes to waste. And so what I like to do is I like to take those bananas and freeze them. So I wash them, I peel them when they look something like this, or I bake with them right away. But if they're not ready to go, I wash them, I peel them, and I just slice them, and I put them in little airtight containers, and they're in the freezer, and usually pretty easy to just peel away what you need if they're already sliced in there and ready to go. So smoothies, baking, just all kinds of wonderful things you can do with those. And then the pineapple we're using is nice and ripe and ready to go, and would be delicious eaten as is, but we are gonna slice it up, puree it, and add it to this wonderful bread that we're making. So I want to introduce Melanie. We had a wonderful little chat. Melanie's cooking along with us. Melanie, registered dietitian with Dole. Hi, Melanie. Would you say hello? And maybe what are we celebrating at Dole? There's a big anniversary, isn't there?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I am Dole's registered dietitian, and I'm also culinary trained. And I have so much fun at Dole working with healthy recipes. And this is our 125th year of bananas. So growing, delivering, shipping, bringing America's favorite fruit into your home. So we've been doing that for 125 years, and it's a really big deal for us. And you can see all about it on Dole.com. We have really cool recipes, downloadables, awesome things for families and children. Like really good activities that support good nutrition at home. So I hope you will go visit and explore a little bit at Dole.com and on our social at Dole Pics.
This is great. Thank you so much. And also, you noted earlier on that this recipe, you ran it through a nutritional profile, because I'm going to talk in a minute about what I love about this recipe, because there's so much I love about this recipe, like every recipe at Homemade, but there's so many things I love about this recipe. And could you tell us about the nutritional profile that you've discovered?
Yes. So I was really excited to see this one because it's vegan, it's gluten-free, it's a bread. We love banana bread, but like this is a bread that has pineapple in it. And that's something we haven't quite been able to do because of pineapple's unique properties. It doesn't necessarily like play well with protein, like animal protein. So because this one's vegan, I think it works beautifully, and I had to run the nutrition. So I expect that this bread, this loaf, will have 10 servings. You could probably do 12 if you like smaller portions, but I ran the nutrition off 10. And one slice has about 250 calories. So that's like good. Like if it's after a workout or for breakfast, that's like a decent, amount that will satisfy you. it also has 4 grams of fiber, which is great. Like, as a dietitian, I tell people all the time, if you're looking for something that's a good source of fiber, look for 3 to 4 grams. So this has 4, which is wonderful. And only 12 grams of sugar, most of which are natural, coming from the pineapple and the banana. The added sugar would be the maple syrup in here just a little bit, but I thought that was great. Everyone's trying to limit sugar. It has 5 grams of protein per slice, which is nearly an ounce, which is good. And so, in the morning, you pair that with some Greek yogurt, and you have a really good balance of all your macronutrients. And then, it's got calcium, vitamin C, phosphorus, magnesium, manganese, like so many great minerals from the variety of grains that we're using, but the pineapple too. So I just thought, like, all around, the nutrition looks good and satisfying. So
Yeah,
I
and
wanted to share that with you
I
guys.
loved the recipe before you told me all that. Now I love it even more. And the reason for that is that folks that have been to my class before know I'm sort of like that 80-20 thing, like eat healthy 80% of the time, and then 20% of the time just kind of go for it. I mean, not crazy, but kind of crazy. This last few days, I spent 4 days in San Francisco, and it was an eating marathon because San Francisco is such a great city for food. And I ate and ate and ate. It's like if you're in Little Italy, you got to do that. And if you're in Chinatown, you have to do that. And then and then there's a gelato place over there. And then there's this and that. And I ate and ate and ate. I came home and I tested this bread. And because I really came home and I needed to really work on that, get back to that 80%, right? Because I really went on this like marathon kind of thing. And so I came back and I made this bread. And to me, after just a salad or something for dinner and a slice of this bread was so satisfying. It's dense and it's flavorful and it's got all these wonderful, as Melanie says, the fiber and everything in it. So it made me feel really good eating it. And it filled me up. And I have a huge appetite. And it filled me up. And it was very satisfying. And it's almost has that, even just with the natural sugar and the fruit sugars, it has almost like that dessert. I love dessert. Pineapple upside down cake is one of my favorite desserts. But it's a different way to eat pineapple in a dessert-ish kind of thing. So I really love this recipe. It has a little bit of, because we're using a non-wheat flour, it has a little bit of that chewy, I don't know, I want to say mochi texture to it, which I love. And most people I know love mochi, but I do know some people who they say, I'm not really wild about that. Sometimes gluten-free products have sort of that little chewiness to them. It's the rice flour, the non-wheat flour. I like that texture personally. It's also a very moist bread. So you're not looking for a fully cooked, it's fully cooked, but like a loaf that you're going to tear apart and eat. It's not that style of bread. It's a little different, but I'm a fan. I am a huge fan. So we're going to go ahead and get started, unless anybody has any questions or comments or anything right away in the chat. Chef Lisa, how are we doing over there?
Nothing yet. Everyone's just talking about how much they love pineapple and teriyaki. And they're talking about, preparation. They're like, I never washed a banana before. I've washed melons, but not bananas.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
If you've been to my classes here before, you know what a germaphobe I am. I wash the avocado. The outside of the banana, we're on the West Coast. I've never seen a banana grow on a tree here on the West Coast. They come from far away, and they have to be. It's amazing, isn't it, how they travel so far, and you can buy them. They're beautiful in the store, so they pack them well. They travel, but they go through a lot of processes, and they go through a lot of hands, and then somebody picks them up in the store and they say, I don't want those ones, I want those ones, they look better, and then they wipe their nose or something, and then they go back and they pick up the bananas again. I wash everything, at least a quick rinse off, right? That's just me. So hopefully I've turned some people onto that, and people, they curse me sometimes and say, I can't just grab a banana and peel it anymore. I always have to wash it. It's all your fault. But sorry, I'm just trying to keep us safe. I know some germs are good for you, but just trying to keep us all safe. So recipe calls for 2 cups of oat flour. I did not have oat flour at home the first time I made this. So I just took oats, just regular old oats, and not old, they were fresh, but regular oats. And I put them into a food processor. A blender would work as well. And I measured the 2 cups is oat flour. So the oats themselves, when you measure a cup of oats, it's going to be less than a cup ground. Does that make sense? You're going to grind them up fine. The surface area is going to be really, really small, so it's going to be less than a cup. So what I did was I did 2 heaping cups, and then when I ground them, I came up with just about that, just really close to that 2 cups. Does that make sense? And they don't have to be really, really fine. A little texture, there's other textures going on in this recipe, so a little texture is completely fine. We have the oat flour that we bought, and that's a little finer product, so I use partially already pre-ground oat flour, and then I just did want to show you that little trick with grinding just regular oats yourself. You know, I also am not a fan of having to go out and buying a million different ingredients. So I like to use, if I have something on hand that's going to work, I like to use that, okay? And then we have a couple of other flours that we're using here. So we have the almond flour, tapioca flour. Tapioca is going to help bind it. It's going to help kind of thicken things up a little bit. And we have just a 1/4 cup of rice flour. And then I have all of my spices and baking soda and salt today we're using, and you could certainly modify this. If there's something here you don't like, you could modify it, cinnamon, nutmeg, whatever. Today we're using cardamom, which is one of my absolutely favorite spices ever. Again, that's gonna help give the bread a little of that sweetness too. Cardamom is a sweet spice. Nutmeg, which is probably my second favorite spice. Baking soda, baking powder, and salt. So we have all of our dry ingredients are in this one bowl, and then I'm just going to give those a little whisk to incorporate them, and that's all the dry ingredients. And they're ready to go. And then we're going to work on the wet family, so we're going to mix. It's a very straightforward mixing method. We have dry ingredients and we have wet ingredients, and we're going to mix the two together, pour them into our pan, and bake it. So very, very simple. So we'll talk about the pineapple first. I took the crown off already. This is a really nice, ripe pineapple. It's smallish to medium size. When I've tested this recipe twice now, and I used a pineapple about this size. So for the sake of our class timing tonight, I'm using the same size because I came up with just about exactly 1.5 cups of puree with a pineapple this size. And this was really interesting, something that I learned because and I've said this a million times, I love this job so much because every time I come into the homemade studio and I work with our fabulous partners like Dole, I learn something. And Melanie, before class, taught me that each one of these little things, Melanie might need to help me, each one of these little things, these little sections on the pineapple is an actual fruit. It's an actual fruit, and then they all come together to form the one big pineapple. I probably said that terrible, and you can feel free to interject if you'd like.
They fuse together as the pineapple grows.
Fuse, those little fruits, individual fruits fuse together as the pineapple grows. You said it so much better than me, thank you. So of course I washed the pineapple, and then the crown, took the crown off. And then this is the way I cut most melons, other fruits. We were letting this one ripen a little bit. There's a little bit of brown in the center, but just on the bottom, so that's not an issue. I cut off the top and the bottom, create a nice sturdy flat surface. And then I want to use as much of the pineapple as possible because that's just the way I cook, trying to utilize as much of everything as I possibly can. But as Melanie told us earlier, pineapple is known to sort of have a fair amount of waste on it. We've got the big crown, you know. She's going to show us a decorative way to use that a little bit later on. She's doing that at home, and we'll see that, how you can actually use that as a serving dish, which I absolutely love. But I'm going to take my knife and I'm using a serrated knife to cut through this thick pineapple. I'm going to come as close to the outside as possible so I don't lose a lot of the interior flesh. So I'm just going to take my knife and kind of cut around, and the pineapple is shaped, you know, it curves a little bit, so I have to kind of curve my knife around. And then sometimes we have some little pieces that we want to remove, some little bits of those individual fruits that are on the inside. And I like to use, it's technically called a Parisian scoop. for potatoes. It's a French tool used for potatoes. Somebody on one of my classes here at Homemade had what I referred to as a tomato shark at home. It's a little, usually it's red and it has little sharp teeth like a shark, and you use it to core tomatoes or strawberries, and those are really handy. But this little Parisian scoop also has a pretty little sharp edge, and if you want, you can take out those little pieces. If you're going to just cut it up and serve it whole or in bite-sized pieces or something, you can just remove like this rather than cutting them out where you might have a tendency to lose more of the pineapple flesh that we want to use. So that's a nice little trick that I like to show, and a tomato shark would work really well for that too. Now today we could just puree the core as well if you want. So we'll go ahead and cut through the core down the middle, and then we'll cut each of those in half. This pineapple smells delicious, and the color isn't quite as vibrant as a lot, so this is a great one to be using because it's ripe. It's soft and ripe, so it's actually a great one to be using in this recipe today because it does have a little bit of brown on it. We're going to go ahead and cut the core out, and I typically will eat that if it's not too fibrous. So you could eat it, you could puree it in with the puree that we're making for the bread tonight. You can save it for a snack. You could freeze it and use it for smoothies. You could also, if you end up with more than the 1.5 cup of puree, you could freeze some of these pineapple chunks and use them for baking later or for smoothies. Smoothies have become quite popular, and if you cut these up in chunks and put them in an airtight container and stick them in your freezer, they will separate. They shouldn't really freeze together. They will separate really well. And you can just take out what you need and use them for smoothies. So that's all ready to go. And I'm going to use the same machine because it's all going. You also know that I don't really like to do a lot of dishes. It's all going into the same bread pan to be baked. So there's really no need for me to clean that out from the little residual flour that's in there. And we'll just and then instead of mashing the bananas separately, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to put them in there as well and get them mixed in there. My machine's big enough to do that. I might need to add a little bit of my liquid ingredients. These bananas are perfect for baking. Perfect.
Chef Diana.
Yes.
We have a couple questions in the chat about lots of flour questions. So I hate to interrupt, but we're going to ask
That's okay. We anticipated these, didn't we?
Yes.
So go ahead.
So either Chef Diana or Melanie can answer these probably. So the first one is there a substitute for the rice flour?
Melanie, do you want me to take that or do you want to take it?
Well, I'm curious what your answer is, because I was thinking that if I was short on a flour, I might be nervous to just like use a lot more of another one that we're using, you know, like for example, the almond flour. I know it's like it absorbs a lot of moisture, and I'm not sure how rice flour behaves. So I'll let you take that one.
Okay. So my experience is that the rice flour is going to be more for, it's not going to act as a binder. It's not going to be a binder. It's going to be more about texture. And because of all the other flours that we have, I'm not that concerned about it, but I like your point because I wouldn't use something like a tapioca flour. Now, what is tapioca typically used for? It's used as a thickener, often used like in a berry pie or something as a thickener, and it will really thicken up those juices from the berries. So I'm thinking, okay, and I'm far from a food scientist either. It's trial and error for me, right? But I'm thinking that tapioca, no. But I feel pretty comfortable with almond flour. First of all, I love almond flour, and I feel like I could substitute. It's a 1/4 cup. I feel like I could comfortably substitute a 1/4 cup of almond flour. I would feel comfortable with that. Okay. So I wouldn't use the tapioca if you wanted to skip the rice flour. That would be my suggestion.
More oat?
Use more. Or
Could
oats.
you use
Use
just
more
more
oats.
oat
Yeah,
flour?
or use more oats. Sure. Oat flour would work, I think, as well. Also, now the oat flour is going to give us a little coarser texture. So maybe you like that. It doesn't have a super coarse texture. It's definitely got some. You can taste that there's fiber in it. The texture is really nice. If you like something with a little more fiber, yeah, bump up the oat flour. That's a great suggestion. And if you like even more fiber than that, then don't grind the oats so far. Leave them a little bit bigger. And that would work as well. We also have a really interesting ingredient. I'm gonna turn this on. I don't know how well you can hear me with the machine on. It won't be on very long. So I've got my bananas, my pineapple, and look I still have a little bit of room. So I'm gonna go ahead and add my flax eggs. Now this is a fun thing. So we're keeping this completely vegan. If you weren't concerned about keeping it completely vegan, you could substitute 2 eggs. Instead, these are flax eggs, which is basically 2 tablespoons of flax seed with 6 tablespoons of water. I let that sit, and then it becomes this lovely little mixture that's going to help bind, and also the flax is a nutritional component and fiber in the recipe. So you could use whole eggs. Now that is going to change the nutritional profile that Melanie talked about earlier on. Okay, we do have. In a moment, I'm going to put the coconut oil in as well. We do have the coconut oil, which we wanted, if you're trying to cut down on the saturated fats, the coconut oil you could substitute with a vegetable oil, canola oil, safflower oil, or something like that. Okay, so again, if you're not concerned about keeping it vegan, I think it's kind of fun to keep it vegan and to add this flax and to play around with a flax egg, which was new to me. So I'm sort of getting a kick out of that myself. But I am not a vegan, but I am curious about it, and I enjoy eating that way on occasion, especially after 4 days in San Francisco and going to the House of Prime Rib. My God, it was so good. It was so horrible and so good. Have you ever been to the House of Prime Rib?
No, I haven't, but that sounds delicious. I love me a prime rib and some horseradish, honey. A lot of horseradish. Also, I have one more question.
Yep.
Does it matter what type of oats you use? There's always like a huge variety of oats in the
Yes.
grocery store. So what would be the best type, or does it matter?
I use the most common one that we see out there that's been around forever and ever and ever. There are steel cut oats and things like that. I've made this bread twice. I love it as it is. I don't see why you couldn't play around with some different oats. Just look at the difference between our standard brand that we usually buy, the main one on the shelf, and what you're buying. And is it firmer? Are they smaller? Are they harder? Yeah, I think you certainly could. Yeah. So vanilla extract, almond extract, again, maybe you don't like almond extract. You could skip that. And then we have our coconut oil, which I melted. And I'm doing this, I love that it all fits in this machine. This can certainly be done in a bowl with a whisk as well. Okay? Last thing, we have our 1/4 cup of maple syrup. And then, this is just a fun little addition, not absolutely necessary, but it does add a nice little tart, fresh little zing here. Some lemon zest, lime zest. Lemon would work too, but the lime is kind of fun with the theme, with the fruits and pineapple and banana, coconut. It's like we're making a pina colada or something. So lime zest.
Pina colada blend.
And then it's a big lime, big juicy lime. So a little bit of lime. In fact, it won't even fit in the lime container because it's so big. So I'm gonna have to use the lemon. And a little bit of juice. And this is our wet ingredients. So fun. We'll puree that. And I have a bunch of these flours at home. I just get a kick out of playing around with the different types of flours. So I have, I keep them in the freezer because I don't use them a lot. Most of them are fine to keep in the pantry at room temperature, but if you don't use them a lot, the rice flour and things like that, I keep them in the freezer. Just put them in a little compact bag, kind of roll them up, clip them, or rubber band around and keep them in the freezer. Okay, so I'm gonna get ready to mix the dry ingredients with the wet. We don't have to be concerned One more reason. If you need another reason to love this bread, I've got one more reason to love this bread. We don't have to worry about overdeveloping the gluten and making a chewy bread because we don't have any gluten-making flours in there. So that would be a wheat flour, which we didn't use. So no worries about over mixing, which can sometimes be a concern. So we're just going to go to the bottom, make sure everything is incorporated really well. And then prepare our pan and put it into the oven. How are we doing in the chat, Chef Lisa? Any questions? Is anybody inspired to make this?
Everyone is inspired. They're curious about the dietary nutrition to this. A lot of people some people are asking how many carbs in each slice. They're like, can we get the info on the nutrition facts? Because people are curious. They're like, how much power does this pineapple bread and banana bread really have?
So Melanie, that's all you, if you're ready for it. I don't know if that's something you can link into the chat or not with a nutritional, or if they can go to the website, your website later and get that.
Yeah, I think we can probably add this recipe to our library to share it, but I can let you know right now, like I heard carbs. So it does have 40 grams of carbs per slice, but you've got 4 grams of fiber in there and only 5 grams of added sugar. So for someone concerned about that, and that is for a loaf that has 10 slices. So these numbers that I'm sharing would be smaller. I won't show my bread yet, but they would be smaller proportion if you made 12 slices, let's say, per loaf as well.
Yeah, 10 slices is a good size portion. It's because it's very satisfying. It's very filling and hearty. So I think that's great. I love that nutritional information. Yeah, thank you for asking that.
I wanted to also add that, before we mentioned freezing bananas, I think in this recipe, you really just want to make sure you're using super ripe bananas so you can take advantage of that natural sweetness. And I think frozen bananas would work really well in here. And everyone always has those frozen bananas. So as I'm mashing my yellow bananas, I wish they were super ripe and brown, but that's always an option too.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I like to wash the banana, peel it, slice it, small half-inch slices, and put it into a container. Because then when I take out what I'm ready to use, they thaw really fast. I don't know what that's all about, but bananas, if you put them at room temperature, they thaw really, really fast from the freezer, especially if you slice them up really thin. So it's not like you have to plan way ahead. Like if you're cooking meat or something, you have to pull it out the night before and put it in the bottom of the refrigerator. This is something that if you do have those bananas in the freezer, those super ripe bananas, and they're already sliced, it's super easy to just pull them out and prepare them. And then I imagine you could also use, it was fun to use fresh pineapple today, but we can also use canned pineapple for this, probably. Do you think, Melanie, would that work?
Probably, but why would you use canned if you could use fresh? we love fresh pineapple at Dole, but canned would probably be okay too. I was thinking on the calories and carbs, and when those questions came in, this would be a really great after workout replenishing snack. And bananas themselves are actually a really great source of potassium and electrolytes, and they're just as efficient as those sports drinks that we won't name, but a banana and water can be just as effective.
And so much healthier. And then I don't know if anybody is like me. Sometimes in the afternoon, every once in a while, and I'm not sure what brings it on, but in the afternoon, sometimes it's like I get that I really need something to eat. A lot of people say, well, that's low blood sugar. I'm not sure what it is, but it's I really need something to eat. This would be perfect. And this would also freeze really well if you slice it and wrap it really well. Slice it ahead of time and put it in the freezer, and it would freeze really, really well, where you could pull a piece out and put it in the toaster. This morning I took a piece and I put it in the toaster, and then I put this little cashew almond butter on top of it for breakfast. It was so delicious. But for that afternoon snack, I think it'd be a really, really wonderful way to go also. Or French toast, maybe? Like a version of a French toast with some fresh fruit on top.
French toast sounds amazing.
French toast. I haven't had French toast in years.
Delicious. Oh, yeah. I have one more question. So I guess sometimes it is hard for people to find tapioca flour and rice flour. Is it possible to grind tapioca and rice to make flour? Would it be similar texture or benefits to oats?
I'm really glad somebody asked that question, and my answer is I have not had success doing that. So I have tried both of those. In some specific Thai dishes, toasted rice ground up is an ingredient for certain things, and it's supposed to have this really wonderful crunch to it, and it does, and it stays there. So grinding it like in a spice grinder, it does not turn into flour, for rice flour. Tapioca flour I suppose can be difficult to find. This, the specialty grocery stores, the larger ones would have it probably, but it may not be in every grocery store. But the pearls, the tapioca pearl, I have not had success grinding that up. I have soaked it in water and pureed it and used that for tapioca flour, and in what I've made in the past, that has worked pretty well for me, but grinding it has not. So, good question. And I hope that was helpful. I hope nobody's intimidated by the amount of flours and the ingredients. And if you are, keep asking those questions, because I think between Melanie and I, we can answer them. And if you're intimidated at all, though I don't think this crowd, they don't get intimidated very easy. You guys are awesome. You're amazing. So we're using a loaf pan as called for in the recipe. I've only tested it in a loaf pan, but maybe somebody wants to make this, but you're a small household and you're like, I'm just not sure if that's for us or not. Make half of one. Make a small loaf pan. Some people might have those small loaf pans, or a muffin, or another type of pan. Just account for the different pan size of what you're making. A muffin's actually going to go a lot quicker, right, in the oven. So play around. I have not yet, but I don't see why it wouldn't work in another type of pan. Anyway, again, it's going to freeze well. But the recipe actually calls for 2 really ripe bananas, so it's easy to have the recipe because you use 1. Eat the rest of the pineapple and use 3/4 of a cup of puree instead of 1.5 cups. Or save the puree and put it into a drink or a smoothie later on, or pour it over yogurt or something. So in my opinion, this recipe would be really easy to cut in half if you just want to play around with it and have a smaller amount to begin with. So I have a little bit of that coconut oil, since we're going straight forward with coconut oil. If you decided to use the vegetable oil or something else, you could definitely use that. And I'm going to go ahead and oil the pan. I use a paper towel. You could use a pastry brush, but I just use a little half sheet of a paper towel, and then you can just really get in all the edges of the pan. A pastry brush, sometimes when they get older, they start to shred, and then they're really not the easiest thing to clean either. So I usually always do this with a little piece of paper towel. And then I cut some parchment paper ahead of time just by lining the pan up like this, drawing a line and then cutting that. And I'm going to go ahead and put this piece of parchment paper down in the bottom of the pan, up the sides. These are our little handles for pulling it out, which makes it really nice and handy. And then this other little sheet I'll just put over here. It's fine that it doesn't come all the way up. We've got lots of insurance here that the batter's not going to stick. So we don't have to worry about cutting another piece and covering every single little surface area. And then, oh gosh, I picked a heavy bowl today. It's a pretty bowl. We have a yellow theme here today, right? Very pretty bowl, but it's heavy. Let's see if I can get all this in here without making a mess. And mine took a little longer than 60 minutes to cook. I went about 70 in a preheated 350 degree oven. And it was perfect. Putting a toothpick into the center can be a little deceiving because this bread is so moist that you're like, is that raw batter on the toothpick, or is it just my really moist crumb bread? Okay, so just know that it's probably going to take at least 60 to 70 minutes to cook. And you certainly can stick a toothpick or a skewer or something in to test for doneness. And if you pull that out and you see raw dough sticking, then it's not done. Put it back in the oven. But if it just is like that moist crumb sticking to the skewer or the toothpick, that's totally fine. Okay? So it's ready to go in the oven. And the one I made earlier today here, it sunk a little bit, which is fine. It smells good. It's definitely done. It sunk, and I'm not really sure why it did that. It'll still taste delicious. We can definitely slice this, and it will present really nicely. So again, I tested it with a skewer, and the skewer came out with just some nice little moist crumb. And then let it cool completely before you cover it, just because we don't need to add any more moisture. We've got those beautiful pineapple, bananas, all that flax eggs, all that moisture already in there. So if you cover it when it's still warm, it's going to sweat inside of there, and you're going to lose your nice crispy exterior. Okay, so
Diana, it looks so good, and honestly, I'm glad it's sunken because you can put fresh fruit on there.
You could.
know?
Oh, you certainly
Some
could.
Yogurt
Yeah.
for extra protein to go along with that powerhouse of fruit.
Yeah, so lots of good stuff going on there. And then we can slice it. I have one that I actually already sliced. This is the one that I made yesterday at home. And this is the little condiment, the cashew, almond, cardamom, coconut, chia seed butter that I put on it that was so good. And also, this spread butter was so good on it. But and then this morning, again, I toasted this, so it just had like a little crunch on top of it. Now, I did not put any of the additions into this one that I made at home yesterday, so the recipe has some really nice suggestions for additions. And today, I did put the chia seed in. So these are some of the additions that you could put in there. So you could put some chia seed, which will add a little crunch, and again, some more nutritional, another boost in there. Toasted coconut, this is not toasted yet, you could either toast it and put it on top at the end, or you could incorporate some coconut into the batter and then bake that if you want a little more coconut flavor. Coconut oil doesn't have a lot, it's not a strong coconut flavor. It does have a little hint of coconut, but it's not a strong coconut flavor. And then these little cocoa nibs are so good. They're from the chocolate. When they process chocolate, they're the outside layer of the chocolate, and they're not sweet at all. They're crunchy and bitter in the most beautiful way, and they add just this little sweetness, bitter, crunch, and they're delicious in here. So I'm excited because I did put the cocoa nibs in this one today, so I'm really excited to see how those worked in here. And I think that wouldn't have had anything to do with the sinking either. The cocoa nibs wouldn't have had anything to do, but we'll just cut there. And then I think Melanie has
I have mine too.
you have yours too, and yours did not sink.
No, it didn't. I just cut it, and it tastes delicious.
Does it taste good? Did you put any additions in yours, Melanie?
No, I didn't. Just to show everyone, like mine had a good, rise on it. Not too sweet. It's just like slightly sweet. I think it would be good. Like I do like chocolate chips or cocoa nibs.
That looks really good. Are you after my job?
It looks gorgeous. I'm not going to lie.
It does. It looks really good.
That looks great. But it doesn't have space for bananas or pineapples. Ours already has it.
It looks really good. And then do you have your decorative pineapple? And everybody's on Zoom should be able to see that maybe on your If you pin Melanie, you can see that. Oh, you are after my job. Oh my gosh.
Gorgeous.
Oh, that's so pretty. That's fun.
I'll just show one. So we cut it into quarters, and then we're just serving the little chunks like on the skin, which is a little boat. So it's just like a nice way to present your pineapple if you're eating it fresh.
And what about pineapple turning brown? Now, do you need to do that right ahead of time? Or
Pineapple doesn't really oxidize the same way bananas do.
Right.
But I think just with any fruit, you want to just keep it chilled. Like you could do it ahead of time, wrap it, put a cover on it, keep it in the fridge, or wrap each boat if you wanted to. But it's simple enough if you needed to do in advance or even just before you serve it.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my pleasure.
Okay, what do we have?
This
Anything
bread
else?
is so light.
Lorraine and Tina said they both look gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. And this does look really good. I love the outside. I love how the outside gets this kind of crust on it. And then the cocoa nibs, oh my gosh, I'm so excited about those.
The cocoa nibs look so good.
And they typically they stay they keep their little crunch when you put them in something and bake, so.
That looks delicious.
Mm-hmm. It's so moist. I love the cocoa nibs on it. Love it. Oh my gosh. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I pop that into my mouth and then I start talking. Next class, 27th, chicken burger with green bean fries. Yum. That sounds great. Thank you so much for being here with me. I always love this so much. Great job, everybody. Love seeing you. Eat well, be well. Bye.
Take care.